What is going on, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, and welcome back to another episode of Let's Ride. It's a special Let's Ride. Why? Because the Steelers played on Saturday at 1 o'clock, and that's why the next day you always get the Winners and Losers podcast if they play on Sunday. The Winners and Losers podcast is a part of my Monday show. If they play on any other day, it's always the day after the game. So this podcast, in case you're new to the program, is much shorter, but it's all talking about the players that did well, aspects of the game that went right, and the players that were on the other side of that fence that didn't do well, and those things that didn't go the Steelers' way. The Steelers lose this game 24-17 in Detroit, but don't let that final score fool you. There was a lot of good that came out of this game in Detroit. There might be some fans that are bemoaning the 0-3 preseason. Fine. They have every right to do so. And the last 2 weeks have been very challenging. We're not going to lie. I'm not going to try and put lipstick on a pig. But I think when you hear that I have 6 winners and 4 losers after the Steelers lose to the Lions in preseason week 3, I think that you could probably hopefully wrap your head around my thinking. And a lot of it was based on what we saw when the starters or those first and second string players were in, not what we saw in the second half when we're talking third, fourth, and sometimes even fifth string players were in there. So with no further ado, we're going to do winners in the first half, losers in the second half. Let's get this thing started with the winners. The first winner is the starting offensive line. There was no position that was beat to death more than the offensive line, especially Broderick Jones in the last 2 weeks. And I'm not saying that they don't deserve a lot of the blame and a lot of the issues that the Steelers offense was having. They did have their share in that, all of that. But that starting unit, and when I say starting unit loosely, because we really don't know what the offensive line is going to look like when they go to Atlanta in 15 days, 14 days now. They gave up 1 sack if you still count those starters that were in when Justin Fields was in. But remember, when Justin Fields entered the game, Broderick Jones was still at the right side. They had subbed out Dan Moore Jr., and the left side was anchored by some guy that I think it's Devery Hamilton. That's it, Devery Hamilton. I had to look it up. I had to go back and look up and see what this guy's name was. He was the one that gave up the pressure. The running back didn't pick up the blitz well, and that led to the only sack. But the starting offensive line also helped orchestrate 2 scoring drives and a beautiful 31-yard run by Cordero Patterson where Dan Moore, Isaac Seumalo, and Zach Frazier, boy, did the Red Sea just opened for Cordero Patterson as he scampered into the end zone for the touchdown. So the Steelers' offensive line was highly scrutinized, but I thought that they did a much better job both in run blocking and pass blocking. They provided both Russell Wilson and Justin Fields plenty of time to throw passes and to complete passes down the field. So I want to give them their props. The first winner was the Steelers' offensive line. And then the next winner is Cordero Patterson. He finishes with 3 carries, 31 yards, a 10.3-yard average. He did score a touchdown, and it was at 31-yard long. There were a lot of fans, I have to be honest, I was one of them, that thought, well, what are they going to do with Cordero Patterson? They say they want him as a return man. They sign him the day after the league passes the new rule, and they don't use him as a return man once. Now, Mike Tomlin has said repeatedly that he's seen what he can do. He doesn't need him out there in the preseason. Okay, but are you actually going to have someone on the roster taking up a roster spot that's all that they do? I always said no. The Steelers said yes, but now we also see that Patterson still has some juice left in his legs in terms of running the football. And it might have been only 1 run because his other 2 runs went for no gain or a loss of yardage. But that 1 run, it wasn't just that the Red Sea parted. He had to make a guy miss in the hole when he did that. It looked like that the injury that landed him on the non-football injury list to start training camp, that seems to be a thing of the past. Looks like he's good to go. And now all of a sudden, I feel much better about the running back depth when it's Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren, once Jaylen Warren's healthy, and Cordero Patterson. I think they'll be very good. Let's go to the next winner, Nick Herbig. Nick Herbig finishes with 3 tackles, 3 solo tackles, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, a forced fumble, and a quarterback hit. I mean, Nick Herbig tears up the preseason every year, it seems like. He's only been in the league 2 years, but man, this guy is a preseason player. But I don't think he's like a 2-star skipper. I don't think he's that type of guy where, okay, he's just a flash in the pan in the preseason. In my opinion, I think you need to have a role for Nick Herbig in the every single week plans going into the regular season. And I'm not saying that he's going to go and should be over top of someone like Alex Highsmith. I'm not saying that. We know he's not going to play over TJ Watt, but I do think the Steelers and those individuals I just mentioned should be more in line with the thought of Nick Herbig coming in and giving them a break because he's dynamic. And I also think the Steelers should use him in situations where they know it's going to be a passing situation, where it's an obvious passing down. Get him out there, let him rush the quarterback, let him do his thing. I'm here for Nick Herbig tearing up the regular season. I want to see it not just be in the preseason, but the regular season too. Speaking of Herbig's production, the next winner is the fact that it was a sack party. The Steelers had 5 sacks in the first half, only had 5 total, 6 quarterback hits on the day, but 5 of those sacks came in the first half, 4 of them in the first quarter. Those Steelers that started this game, Herbig, Kyron Johnson, the German, Welschoff, I think is his name. He actually is German. That's why I called him that. He's in that exchange program with the NFL. He had 2 sacks. DeMarvin Leal, Larry Ogunjobi, Keanu Benton were all in on the mix. They were putting some crazy pressure on the quarterback for the Detroit Lions. And it's something where when you look at this, what really was lousy is that, to be completely honest, is that once these guys left the game, when I say them, once these players left the game, all those aforementioned, the players that were putting pressure, Hendon Hooker, who's the quarterback for Detroit, he started to just go crazy on the Steelers. He started to just maneuver his way through the pocket. In the first quarter, there was nowhere to go. In the first quarter, he had nowhere to go. And so it was a sack party. I wish the sack party would have continued. It didn't. Alas, we'll be okay. That's a winner, though, for sure. Let's go to the next winner. I have Corey Trice. Now, Joey Porter Jr. was held out of this game for precautionary reasons. I guess he's dealing with some minor stuff, and they didn't want him to play and potentially re-injure anything. So Corey Trice got some run with the starters. He had 2 tackles, 2 solo, and 1 tackle for loss. Corey Trice I thought he did a great job. I was really disappointed, though. After the game, I did not know this during the game, but after the game, Mike Tomlin spoke to the media and he kind of rattled off some injuries. And Ryan Watts, when it got injured, and we saw that, and I hope he's okay. But he said that Corey Trice had a groin injury, and it's like, oh gosh, darn it! Like, this guy was having a good camp, good preseason, was kind of carving a rollout for him as a cornerback too, maybe seeing time in the dime. And then this happens. He's like, gosh, it's frustrating. I hope that the groin injury is minor. I hope that he's able to play in week 1 because he deserves it. I thought Corey Trice did a good job on Saturday in Detroit. And then the last winner, quarterback clarity. Quarterback clarity. Everyone was wondering all preseason, who's going to be the quarterback? And we reported ourselves that Justin Fields, the percentage was getting greater, that he has a chance of playing. But Russell Wilson's got to go out there. He's got to do it. Well, Russell Wilson did that for a drive. He orchestrates a touchdown drive. Beautiful pass that he had to George Pickens down the sideline. It was a big gain. And I think that when you look at that and then they pull Russell Wilson after that one drive, that tells you everything you need to know. It's going to be what we all thought. Russell Wilson's going to get the start down in Atlanta. They're going to give him every opportunity to keep the job, to do the thing. And I still do think that if the offensive line can give him time, that you're going to see Russell Wilson still be able to make plays, that he's still able to read the field, that he's still able to make the throws. I believe in that. But I think the winner here is not just the fact that Russell Wilson is the starter, but it provides some clarity for the position. Mike Tomlin, I don't think he's going to come out and say that Russell Wilson is the guy anytime soon. He's going to want to keep Atlanta guessing, but we'll see. We will see. So there are your winners. To recap, we have the offensive line, the starting offensive line, Cordero Patterson, Nick Herbig, the sack party for the Steelers starting defense, Corey Trice, and some quarterback clarity. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back after this break, we're going to be back talking all about those players that didn't do so well, the losers. Be right back. All right, we are back, and it's time to talk about the losers, the players that did not do too well in this game. This is a tough one, but let's talk about the backup defense. So the Steelers starters, we just talked about the sack party and Nick Herbig and how well they did. Well, the backups, not so much. They allowed Hendon Hooker to run all over him. 10 rushes for 93 yards for the quarterback, the backup quarterback in Detroit. But Detroit also rushes for 187 yards on the ground, 4.6 yards per carry. And they did it in numerous ways. They were running all over the Steelers. The defense, the backups, that is, couldn't stop anyone. The tackling was atrocious. The one thing that I take away is not just that the backup defense were considered losers in this game, but I looked at it and said, man, the Steelers' depth at some positions might be great, but in others, it is really thin. And so what you saw is a half of football, almost 3/4, because they started taking Herbig and some of them players out earlier in the game. Man, the backup defense struggled. Really, really struggled. They were losing players in zone coverage. They weren't staying with people in man coverage. It was rough. The backup defense finds their way on the losers list. Now, the run defense in particular, that's the next loser, because I just mentioned how the Detroit Lions rushed for 187 yards and they allowed a quarterback to lead it with 93 yards. And almost all of those yards by Hendon Hooker and that whole offensive unit, the running game, came against the Steelers' third, fourth, and fifth string players. And I guess for me, I don't expect a suffocating style of defense from those players. What I expect are little things, fundamental things to still be done properly, like tackling, taking good approach angles, having the will to take someone down. And sometimes tackling is a 1-2 thing. You either want to or you don't. Unfortunately, it looked like a lot of those players didn't want anything to do with contact. Therefore, the run defense is on the loser list. Next is the slot cornerback position. And the stat line is simple. Who knows who will play there? I left this game. I watched the game on Saturday, and I tweeted this out. I said, as this game's basically over, I have no clarity. Talk about quarterback clarity in the first half of the winter segment. I have no clarity in terms of the slot cornerback position. Beanie Bishop, nope. The other young guy that I don't even know his name, Thomas something, nope. I don't know what they're going to do. There's been rumors that the nickel sub package, they're going to have Deshaun Elliott in the slot. In the dime, they were going to use Corey Trice if he's healthy in the slot. I don't know. Maybe they can use a mash unit to figure this thing out. I don't necessarily believe that's the best approach. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But this is a big loser for me, is the fact that we went all preseason and we don't have any player that we can say that's the guy who's playing the slot. At least not until week 9, when Cam Sutton's suspension is done and he's able to return to the team. Once that happens, the Steelers are fine. But getting to that point, who the hell is going to play the position? I don't know. And that's why it's on the loser list. And then the last loser is as broad as I could get, the 2024 preseason. Why? Stat line, 0-3 and absolutely brutal. So yes, there were some bright spots in this game on Saturday in week 3. The offense started to kind of warm to the task. You started to see some players actually being able to figure some things out. The offensive line started to get it going. But man, was it brutal. For weeks 1 and week 2, just tough to watch. And I understand there's a lot of change going on within the Steelers organization. You have a whole new quarterback room, whole new coordinator. You got new places for new faces. You've got rookies that are being thrust into the starting lineup, whether it's Troy Fautanu, who's supposed to start at right tackle when he's healthy, whether it's center Zach Frazier, who knows? But it's tough. And the second half of this game on Saturday was brutal. I mean, brutal. When the Steelers, I didn't care how it ended. Just end it. Just end it. And I feel that way about the entire preseason. Just end it. It's over with. Let's move on with our lives. And let's see what the regular season has in store for these Steelers. Because I told myself, and if you listen to my podcast, you have receipts. I said before training camp started, don't fall into the 2023 trap. And I have stuck with that. So I'm not overly confident now because the Steelers offense scored 2 touchdowns for the players that are going to play in the regular season. No, I'm also not detracted by the fact that they only scored 2 touchdowns this preseason. I'm not going to worry until the players that are going to play full games get out there and play a full game in a game that actually counts. But this 2024 preseason is on the loser list because it was brutal. Brutal for the fans. So here's what you have to look forward to. Tuesday is when the Steelers will cut their roster from 90 to 53. They might have some cuts before then, but Dave Schofield and I tomorrow morning, Monday, on the Let's Ride podcast, are going to give our final 53-man roster predictions. this is going to be really interesting. It's going to be really challenging as well. So we're going to be doing that. That's going to be a part of my Let's Ride podcast on Monday. So make sure you check that out. Make sure you check us out at steelcurtainnetwork.com. You'll have that article and so much more, like the fact that right now I'm wearing my Super Bowl 40 championship shirt. I wrote a great article. I really enjoyed writing the article about when the Steelers play at Ford Field, I automatically think about that Super Bowl run. And it was such a great year. Go back and check out that article if you want. steelcurtainnetwork.com. That's the web address. Check out all of our stuff. Check us out on YouTube. Check us out on our audio-only platforms, you name it. Check us out, Steel Curtain Network. We got some big things coming up. The Survivor Pool. Dave's got a really cool gift this year to the winner. So you want to check that out. We'll have a podcast about that later on today. Also, make sure you check out the fact that we're going to be partnering up with DraftKings coming up starting this week. So you're going to hear a lot of stuff about DraftKings odds, parlays, and all that fun stuff. The season is here, folks. I know we got to wait 2 weeks, but the season is officially here. The preseason's over. Let's get to it. I know you're as excited as I am, but you know how we finish these out. Be safe, be kind, and God bless. I'll talk to you tomorrow on Monday. Take it easy. Go Steelers.